Hello, I'm Ryan F9, and this road behind me here is Quebec Highway 327. This road is super popular with sport bike guys, Harley dudes, ADV riders like myself. I think the only type of bike that I haven't actually seen out here yet today is a Café Racer. Alright. But to be honest though, as I was sort of saying, I'm not really surprised that I don't see many Café Racers out here. And that's because I don't think they actually get ridden all that often. That's sort of my problem with them. I don't have a problem with the bikes themselves. I don't have a problem with the Old Testament beard, mason jar tea drinking hipsters that ride them either. I'm a bit of a closet hipster myself. One day I'll probably buy a Café Racer because I think they're so damn cool. No, my problem with the Café Racer Craze is really that I just worry about it for beginners. I worry because a lot of new riders get into motorcycling and start motorcycling on Café Racers. And that scares me a little bit because I think for new riders, if you're going to start at motorcycling, a Café Racer is one of the shittiest places to actually start. That's my fear. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, I don't think your first motorcycle should cost $400 to buy and $4,000 to put together. It shouldn't be something you have to kick 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times on a chilly morning just to wake it up. You shouldn't really have to fiddle with crappy carburetors that are gulping air from cone filters and sipping fuel from jets that have been clogged from the last 30 years of sitting in a barn somewhere. And these are the sort of the dangers of the 1970s UJMs that often get converted into Café Racers. Now, what else could I say? You shouldn't lean into a lovely curve like this on suspension that's been crushed by the heavy hands of a home mechanic, at least not when you're a beginner. Now, you shouldn't go into your first panic stop on drum brakes. What else can I say? Your first saddle sores shouldn't arrive on the second kilometer. And most of all, though, you shouldn't start motorcycling thinking that moto style has to be jeans, a flannel shirt flapping in the breeze, and a nice retro open-faced helmet. There's nothing wrong with all these things, of course. Again, I'm really into Café Racers. They're totally cool. The thing is, though, is that all these things give the motorcycle a lot of flavor. It's very interesting to have an old bike that's been heavily modified and it's a super unique ride. That's a very flavorful riding experience. But it can be overpowering to the new motorcyclist. I mean, you don't give a 7-year-old a double shot of espresso. You give them hot chocolate, and then eventually they might try a mocha. And then from there, maybe you go to a Timmy's Double-Double. You work your way up to the real coffee, and that's what a Café Racer is. It's the real coffee. They're a very flavorful thing to ride, and it's maybe a little bit overpowering for new motorcyclists. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that the Café Racer Craze is creating a whole slew of, it's getting pretty in here. Yeah, it's looking nice. I'm worried it's creating a whole slew of half-finished project bikes that never really get ridden. I'm worried that it's creating a bunch of riders who never actually see how powerful, reliable, comfortable a motorcycle like this one can be. I'm worried that it's creating a generation of would-be motorcyclists that get into the game, get broke, get bored, get hurt, and then get out. Oh, there's a lake there. Oh, there's so many lakes up here. Like, along this road, everywhere you look, it's like another little lake. None of them are very big, though. Ah, it's pretty. So does that mean new motorcyclists should not buy a Café Racer? I would say absolutely not. Hell to the no. You should buy whatever you want to buy. You should rev the engine on whatever revs your engine. Hello. I always feel a little bit guilty when I pass cyclists because I have an engine, but I guess they're doing it by choice, pedaling around. Yeah, so buy whatever you want. I would say absolutely newbies, feel free to get a Café Racer. Just try to do it maybe a little bit cleverly, know the risks and work around them. One thing I would do is if I was going to get a 1970s UJM, those really popular motorcycles for Café Racers. What I would do is I would buy something that runs really well and has always run really well. Not something that's been, sat in a garage for any extended period in its life. And then once you have that, I would just ride it and ride it and ride it. Because roads like this are awesome! Oh, look at this! It's kind of scenic, and yeah, the curves just keep coming on this thing. But yeah, the main benefit to putting a lot of, maybe 5,000 kilometers between your wheels before you even think about modifying that bike, is that you realize how reliable it is before you start throwing money at it. You also realize what you like about it before you try to change things. You're going to look at a nice, comfortable seat like this one totally differently once you've felt the benefit of it, You might rethink the paper-thin seats that are really common on Café Racers. You're going to look at clip-on handlebars differently once you've experienced the benefit of a proper riser bar like this one. You're going to look at fenders differently for sure, because fenders prevent the mud and the sand and the rain and all that stuff from ruining every piece of motorcycle clothing you own. So you might reconsider lobbing those off once you go to actually turn your bike into a Café Racer. So yeah, so buy something that runs well and ride it a lot, because it's really easy to get bored with a motorcycle that you can't actually use while you're, fixing it up and all that jazz. The other thing I would recommend, and this is probably what I would do if I was going to buy a Café Racer, is I would get a new vintage motorcycle. Oh, orange cones. It's rather ominous. I don't really see any danger. I don't know. Yeah, buy a new vintage motorcycle. Of course, new vintage is bullshit. The name itself is an oxymoron, but much like jumbo shrimp, new vintage is a delicious kind of bullshit. At the risk of pushing this metaphor way too far, I'd say that new vintage motorcycles are a way to have a tasty riding experience while still feeling full after. And by that I mean that they're very flavorful, they have that cool vintage style, but they're also very fulfilling to ride. They're fast, they're comfortable, they're reliable. New vintage motorcycles, some of them have ABS, some of them have traction control. All of them have lights that illuminate the road, like these cars here that I will need to see at night, and brakes that stop. So those are very important things to have, especially if you're a beginner rider. And yes, of course, you can still make some cafe-ish modifications to your new vintage motorcycle to avoid that dreaded mainstream. I'm thinking of something like Suzuki's TU 250X, a Ducati Scrambler. They look vintage to begin with, but yes, you can modify them further as well. And of course, they are more expensive, but hey, you can get a used one, low kilometers. If you can wrestle up, maybe $5,000 to pay up front, to me, that really beats paying $3,000 over 3 years for a bike that I can barely use in the meantime. So personally, for me, I'd go with a new vintage motorcycle if I was trying to get into the Café Racer scene, especially if I was new to motorcycling in general. Red signs like this, come on, you don't put that on like a nothing corner like that. You got my hopes up for no reason. Disappointing. Whew. So to sum up, basically, I just want to see more people riding motorcycles, taking advantage of these excellent curves, just like that. I'm thrilled to see any type of person on any type of bike, as long as they're out there riding it. I just hate to see my generation of new motorcyclists falling off the edge of a very sharp trend. And by the way, what a ride, right? Highway 327 was awesome.